Okay, we're live. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Nobody's home, and I needed to put the potatoes in my pot roast. So I'm sorry.
What's a pot roast without potatoes?
Dude, got to have the little potatoes, the little tiny ones, you know.
I know what you mean.
They're on your diet, bro. They're considered a
the keto.
Yeah, they're considered a vegetable.
Is that right?
Yeah, man. Go check out Atkins.
I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, they consider that vegetable. So, anyways, so hey everyone, thanks for joining us tonight for another podcast with Brent and Lee. Man, we're glad to be here. We're glad you're here. Leave a comment in the comment section. Tell us where you're coming from and ask us any questions that you may have, because we're going to cover a whole bunch of stuff tonight. Talk about what's been going on in the market. We've been on the ground for the last week, and things are really shifting, and we're seeing that shift, but not what people would think would be happening. So I'm going to explain a little bit of what's going on, what we're seeing live. We're going to go over some numbers. Brent's going to go over some mortgage information, and then we'll answer all of your questions as we move along. So don't hesitate to ask them. Mm-hmm. Also, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, go ahead and slap that subscribe button, because you don't want to miss any of our real estate tips and tours. Right, Brent?
That's right. That's right.
All right. So let's get rolling. So Brent, talk about what's happening in the mortgages this week.
Yeah.
You're telling me today, it's like it was kind of up and down. So you want me to show that graph you have?
A lot of volatility, especially in today, a lot of volatility. I don't know if anybody's watching the stock market today, but the stock market was down. Basically, Microsoft and Google, or Alphabet is, their stock symbol. But they were off 7 to 9% today on one day. They released their quarterly earnings, and they were down, and that kind of pulled the whole stock market down. I think it was down about, all three indices were down about 2% last I looked, and I don't know what those two closed at, but that was leading the way. And what happens when the economy slows down, since equities or stocks or companies start to slow down, and the economy starts to slow down, there's a flight to quality. In other words, going to investments like mortgages and bonds that are a safe haven, right? And so they sell their equities, and they move to, they park their money in cash, or park their money in a safe investment. Mortgages are backed by real estate, and we have the best real estate in the world here as far as risk, and so,
right.
You know what I mean? And so I don't know if most people know this, but most of the world, you cannot get a 30-year mortgage, fixed mortgage. It's all adjustables. And, it's a really unique thing that we have here because of that secondary market, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. People have heard of that. That's set up to make, very liquid, and pension funds can invest in mortgages, and people, individuals could, in a very safe, stable, rate of return, backed by real estate, the best real estate in the world. So that's what happened today. So yields were pressed down. The bond market was up. And so that's kind of what we've been seeing, that every quarter point, we talked about this, Lee, when the 10-year treasury was hitting 4, it was a great ceiling of resistance, and then it broke through. It runs right to 4.25. And so that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing that, 4.25 has been a new ceiling. Now 4% becomes that floor. And today, the 3-month treasury, 3-month money was trading at a higher yield than the 10-year treasury. So what that means is, if people heard of an inverted yield curve, that means the bond market's saying, the investors that know this stuff and deal in the trading floor every day, they're saying, hey, you know what? We believe we're, those 10-year treasuries, they're a little bit frothy. You know what I mean? We think we see an inflation coming, not inflation. We see recession coming, is what it really signals, an inverted yield curve. And what you're looking at right now on the screen is the last 4 days. If you go to the far right, the green days are up days for the bond, and it's down for interest rates. That's what that looks like, and that's what that is. And so we've had 4 solid days up, and now it's testing that floor of 4% on the 10-year treasury. And so we think that, that the recession, those types of numbers that are coming out, showing things are slowing down, and inflation is starting to get under control, is what we're seeing, play out in the bond market and mortgage rates today. Yeah, kind of crazy. Well,
Yeah.
one of the things that we see too, with the way these bonds are traded and the way it works, there's a lot of volatility in a given day. That's something that's unique too. If those candlesticks, a daily range is normally 12, 15 basis points, and we're seeing 70, 80 point swings in a day. And so knowing when to lock, even in an individual day, can be an issue. Someone has a question here. Brent, since the bonds dropped from 4.3 to 4.7 today. Okay, yes, right. That's what I was talking about. That's a 10-year treasury he's referring to as 4.34 at one point 2 days ago. It was down to 4.02 at one point today when I looked. How long does it take for interest rates to drop? That's a great question. So that actually happens in real time. So we actually see those interest rates improve on our mortgage rate sheets. We actually get reprices for the better in real time. Something that's important to understand this. The Fed has already, been telegraphing what they're going to do. We believe that there's going to be a 0.75% increase in the next meeting. So that's already baked in. In other words, mortgages have adjusted to that news, and that's already in. What you're talking about, the 10-year treasury, that's really the gauge of the overall interest rate that mimics a mortgage, right? The 10-year treasury, it's backed by the U.S. government as opposed to real estate. So it's a very safe, collateral, if you will. The good faith of the U.S. government still has a lot of clout. And then you have, a 10-year timeline, right? So mortgages are held in a little longer. They're not held for, 3 months or 4 months. They're held for 10 years typically, or 6 to 7 years, not technically, is what the average mortgage is held for. So, it resembles a mortgage. And so that's a real good gauge where interest rates are going to go. So it's in real time, to answer your question. It actually adjusts in real time, the same time that drop you see. Bonds, just to give you an idea, the bond market and the treasury market moved about, a quarter technically, but your rates, we dropped about an eighth today.
Yeah. So, where do we see things heading here, Brent?
Well, you know what? It tested that floor of support, that 4% on the 10-year treasury today. It bounced off of it. And so if we break down through that, that'll be a great sign that we can go a leg lower. That's really what we're, hoping that happens at this time. Right now, the 4.25 is the ceiling. So we're trading in that range. It gets down to around 4% on the 10-year treasury. That's when that's in the bonds, actually mortgage bonds are traded, and it mimics the 10-year treasury a great deal. And so the bond market, if you look at the chart of the 10-year treasury and the bond market today, they're very closely resembled each other. So, if we break through that floor, and there's 2 reports coming out, Thursday and Friday this week, third quarter GDP is going to be released tomorrow at 8:30. So we're going to see, the anticipation is a 2% annual growth year over year. That's what they're looking for. That's the expectation. So anything less than that's going to be negative, and the bond market's going to improve. In other words, the rates will improve. And then if there's faster growth than that, then the rates will go up. So remember this: bad news in the equity markets, bad news for the economy is good news for interest rates, because as things start to slow down, a recession comes in, the Fed steps in, they tap the brakes on rate increases to deal with inflation, and they start to actually reverse trend and lower rates to make sure the economy doesn't fall into a serious recession.
Right. So we're seeing articles like this one, man. Mm-hmm. And I brought this up last week. Mm-hmm. There's a few people out here talking 10%, but I mean, no one in the equity markets believe this is going to happen. I mean, no one.
No.
I mean, so I mean, if mortgage rate, if the Fed allows mortgage rates to hit 10%, it's over. Like, the economy collapses completely.
Transactions.
Yeah. I mean, because it's not just mortgage rates, man. It's companies being able to borrow money for themselves.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people don't understand is, like, big companies like, these multinational companies like GE and stuff, they borrow money for a day.
Right.
And that was 2008. That was the kicker, is when the CEO of GE called up Bernanke and said, "Hey, we're not able to borrow money."
Right.
And
Well,
that was
you know,
that's when Bernanke went to the president, called the president, and went to the Oval Office and said, "Hey, listen, we've got a problem. We're about to have soup lines. You know, they're
right.
going to the banks are about to collapse."
Right. Well, the thing with large companies and commercial accounts, commercial loans, they're tied to the Fed funds rate through the prime rate. The prime is just what it sounds. It's for your prime customers. In other words, that's what IBM, Apple, that's where they borrow. Google, that's where they borrow money as a prime rate. And so when the Fed raises, the Fed funds rate, it goes in lockstep. All the main banks, all the big five banks, they all in lockstep raise their prime rate to their best customers. So you see a 3.25, 3.5, Fed funds rate, you're looking at 6.25 to 6.5 on the prime. And so if you're talking about tens of billions of dollars being borrowed, that will slow companies down. Lee, you're exactly right. They borrow money for a day sometimes.
Right.
That's how they do it. And they need cash as when they need cash just to reconcile accounts, whatever the case may be, that's how they borrow money to open up new locations, things like that. So all those plans get stopped. That's when you see layoffs and so on and so forth. And as we talked, I think in one of our shows here recently, 90% of all CEOs surveyed are actively making plans to reduce staff.
Right. And then I'm listening in the business market, and they're saying it's much easier, especially these tech companies that have let their employees work from home. They'll just fire them over Zoom.
Right. In a blanket
A
email.
lot easier than having them come in your office and cry. You can just turn off Zoom.
Saves a lot of time.
I'm not making jokes. It's a terrible thing, but
it's a horrible
most
thing.
of the layoffs, though, right, we're seeing is in the tech industry.
Right. They're really the one they're suffering right now.
They're suffering
in trouble
right now.
Facebook,
they're not getting the advertising dollars they used to get.
Right.
It's not there for them anymore.
Right.
But Facebook, again, as far as a platform is tracking behind the other platforms like Google and like YouTube, like we're on right now. YouTube's making changes every single day to their algorithm, to the way they do business. They're moving more to a business platform where Amazon, Facebook, yeah. And then the Facebook ads are just not working. Like,
right.
So a lot of businesses are now moving to Google and to YouTube ads, because YouTube's the number 2 platform,
engine, right?
app for people to search on. So
right.
So this article came out too. When will the Fed stop raising rates? Maybe not as soon as you think. Hotter than expected inflation is leaving some economists to predict a peak Fed rate of 5% or higher. What do you think, Brent?
Well, I think, we've got a couple of hikes coming, you know what I mean? So I think we're going to see another point and a quarter, which would put us a little shy of 5%. And I think that's already baked in, frankly, to mortgage rates anyway. And
we've been saying that though forever, and then rates keep going up. You know what I mean? So,
but I think we're seeing some serious slowdowns. I'll give you another.
Well, I think they've done their job already. So if they just, I was listening to one economist a couple of days ago, and he said, as long as they keep this going, as long as the Fed doesn't lose it's cool here, and they just keep going through the holidays, then next year we'll be able to see some recovery.
Right. Well, the Fed's favorite gauge of inflation actually isn't CPI. It's the personal consumption expenditure report. And what that is, it's a gauge on inflation as well, just using a different methodology. And so what that's coming out Friday, by the way, at 8:30 in the morning. So that's going to be that's the key gauge that they look at when they look at inflation specifically. And, it's a rear view mirror that they're looking at. Right. And so, to give you an idea, the year over year PCE was 7% year over year inflation, if you will. In June, July, it was 6.4 year over year, 6.2 in August, and the September number is going to come out Friday. And so we're going to see where September was. Now we see the greater, a month over months are falling off. The highest numbers are falling off every month. So we saw actually peak inflation technically probably in April or May.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so that now it's going to improve.
Well, I mean, if
month.
you look at all the big box stores, Walmart, Target, I mean, they have tons of inventory.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually in the gym the other day, and this kid, he's a manager at Publix. He's a produce manager, and I was asking him, I mean, I'm going into Walmart and they've got tons of inventory everywhere. You can get anything you want, where that was not the case a few months ago, remember? And Target, I mean, I haven't seen their numbers, but the last quarterly numbers, they were down 90% on their sales. So
yeah,
so they've got a ton of inventory there too. And Walmart's like offering deals even on Apple Watches and stuff. I mean, they've got they're $100 off on Apple Watches. So I mean, all of the Amazon, everybody's starting Black Friday early, these early Black Friday sales. So but I was asking why the inventory is so down in Publix, and they said that he said to me they can't get employees to put the inventory on the shelves.
No.
So they're behind. They can't get employees. And one of the things is Publix doesn't pay a lot of money, so people are leaving that job and finding higher paying jobs here in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And the job market, I mean, so that means the job market's still super strong, and there's lots of jobs available. I mean, Mike Rowe was on the other day talking and said, we're short in plumbers, electricians. We don't have enough welders. I mean, these are high paying blue collar jobs. I mean,
Yeah, my daughter's my 15-year-old daughter.
I think that's the biggest problem that the U.S. economy is going to see is that. So, the only thing that the Fed has done is they've sucked all the money out that was left that hadn't been spent from the middle class, from all the money that the government gave to us over COVID, all this COVID relief money.
Right.
I believe it's pretty much gone.
Yeah. Yeah. For the lower and middle class. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
The big dogs, I mean, I think some of them are still fine. I think,
well,
people
no,
companies
that is absolutely true. People with money, multimillionaires are still buying yachts. They're still buying cars. They're still, they're the high end stuff is moving. It's the lower stuff that's not.
That's when inflation hurts. I mean, for going there,
that's hurting the middle class and the lower class. That's it.
Yeah, it's a percentage of their income. What they
the
spend
working
on
class,
gas.
Workforce jobs and middle class. That's who's getting crushed right now.
Right.
And the workforce is just really getting crushed because I personally am losing cleaning ladies and handymen like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly, I mean, I think the handymen are actually going and working for the builders because the builders are low. They need workers and they can make more money with, working for a builder and have full-time employment.
Right.
So unless it's a handyman like my friend Tico, who's just, it's his gig, he does as a retirement job.
Right. Just likes the freedom.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, he can work when he wants to work, and unless you have that, or it's a company that, I'm starting to turn to more rehab companies that, that they're contractors, which cost people more money.
Right.
So and cleaning people, again, they're not driving far because of the gas prices. So we're losing cleaning people.
Right. They got to stay local. Yeah. Pool companies.
So we're having to go to a lot of the bigger companies to do the jobs for us.
Yeah. I was talking to a gentleman. He's putting 60,000 miles plus a year on his car, his truck, because he's a pool cleaner, as a technician. And so, and he pays his own gas. I mean, it's just devastating to his family,
Right.
Well,
I mean, the pinch is in. I mean, I have a hybrid, and I'm feeling it because I'm driving, south, north, and
Everywhere, yeah.
I fill up a couple of times a week,
Yeah.
and I'm spending way more money to fill up, and I'm
That car was a
shortening another.
godsend. That car was
Are you
what a
kidding me? I mean,
oh
488 miles to a 12-gallon tank of gas. It's unbelievable,
right.
and it's comfortable. It's nice.
It's
It's a
great.
Ford Fusion, but they don't make them anymore.
Yeah, I
But
heard.
I mean, honestly, I mean, I'll own a hybrid
Yeah.
forever now. I mean, I love it.
Yeah.
So like, this, so let's get into some more positive stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, it's not all doom and gloom out there, especially here in this state. So let's get into a little positive stuff. So,
Yeah.
here's the big shock, right? So the last time we saw inflation moving like this, you and I were kids, right?
Right.
So, I mean, you're about to turn 61. I'm 54. I remember my dad screaming and yelling about it. Gas prices were ridiculous. There were gas lines, all this stuff we were dealing with. So,
Right.
that's what we're dealing with right now. So with that being said, these are, you can see this from the 1950s. You can see where the jump was, and then inflation went way down and then came way back up. And then here we are right here, right? So, I mean, this is, for people that have never seen inflation, our generation was the last one to ever see it.
Right.
This kind of inflation.
Right.
So I think it's shocking people right now, but it will change. It's gonna be okay.
Right.
And that's what people need to understand, that we're gonna get through this.
Right.
I go back to, I truly believe that it's surrounded with energy, energy prices. Because if you look at, let's go back to the graph, right? So if you look at, this is core inflation. This is inflation with energy involved.
Right.
Gas prices and heating oil. This isn't changing.
Right.
Oil and gas is going, natural gas, it's going to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's a question. How did the two of us meet?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah. Brent called me one day 8 years ago.
Yeah.
I just started in retail real estate. I was flipping houses with my buddy before then.
That's right.
And I got into retail. Brent called me up and said, "Hey man, do you need a mortgage broker?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I don't have anybody really I'm working with. I had, there was no one in our office or anything that we did. It was a little private office." And he came and met with me and my wife, Lisa, and we ended up finding out we went to the same church, went to Christ Fellowship right here in Palm Beach Gardens, and we've been friends ever since. And
yeah, kind of hit it off.
If you want to know the truth about it, I got really, really sick, and Brent was there for me, and it's God's perfect plan. And here we are today working together, and we've blessed a whole bunch of people, man.
Yeah, it's fun to work together.
We've done a lot of deals that no one else could have ever done or would have done.
Right.
So,
yeah, and there's a mutual respect, I think, that's built over time. That's a great question, Kevin, because I think, it wasn't something that happened instantly. We just kind of like worked over time, began to appreciate the way each other did business, and it really we forged quite a partnership, really. So,
yep,
it's a great question.
Yeah. So getting back to good news, let's look at this. Mortgage rates forecast for 2022. This is talking about fourth quarter. So these are different. So Mortgage Bankers Association, Keller Williams Chief Executive, NAR, and Fannie Mae. So Mortgage Bankers Association thinks that we could be back at 5.5%, but with volatility in the fourth quarter. And Fannie Mae believes that too. Don't know how we're going to do it. Don't think it's going to happen, Brent.
Not that fast. I think rates will come down slower than they went up. I think that the Fed is a little gun shy. I think, because they really missed it.
But
yeah,
if the Fed starts, if the Fed, let's say, puts a halt on things, do you think investors will feel more comfortable and we'll see that spread go down a little bit? Because, explain that spread to people. A lot of people ask me, well, if the Fed rate's 4%, why are we at 6.5 or 7%, right?
Yeah, they're not connected. They are related, but generally speaking, the Fed tries to get ahead of inflation or get ahead of unemployment, so neither one of them get out of control. And so their mandate is full employment, right? Which is basically an acceptable rate of unemployment, which is usually about 5 or 6%. That's a very acceptable rate of unemployment to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of what they're shooting for. They're watching that and they're trying to keep inflation. And the target lately has been 2%, keeping it down around 2%. So when one of them gets, out of kilter, they either start turning up interest rates, to slow things down. And inflation is definitely over 2% right now. Real inflation is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 6.2% right now. Now, that's not the CPI number. CPI is 8.2 at the last reading year over year. But the core, it's not the core, but the personal consumption expenditures, that's really the one they look at, and that's where they believe inflation really is about 6.2 at the last reading. Again, this Friday they're going to come out with the September figures, and remember we're going to be nearly in November when we're looking at September's figures, and it's gone from 7, 6.4, 6.2. So if that trend continues, that's going to be what they'll look at. So they're not. So mortgage rates aren't directly attached to the federal funds rate. It's not. They're mutually exclusive. How one kind of drives it. The Fed funds rate does impact things like installment loans, credit cards, commercial lending to banks, the prime rate, which we talked about just a moment ago, the commercial rate that the biggest companies, corporations in the world pay, interest rates they pay. And so that's directly related. However, mortgages follow more the news directly and are traded as bonds. So that really is tied very closely to the equity markets. Typically a bad day in the stock market is a good day for interest rates.
Right.
So anytime that's slowing down. So there is a little relationship there, but it's disjointed a little bit.
Okay. So rates could fall a little bit more if investors feel comfortable.
Right.
So once investors start to feel more comfortable that people aren't going to refi, then we'll see rates come down a little bit more also, right?
That's great. That's a great point, Lee. Yeah. So the Fed bought a lot of mortgages at 3%.
Yeah, they're going to keep those for a while.
Right. There's not a really strong market for those. They'd sell them and lose on them, right?
Right.
So,
right. And then, and then for the Florida market, and getting very specific, Case Shiller came out with this. So prices are higher year over year, 13% in August, but Fed applied brakes, and that's down from July's 15.6%, yet at 28%. Plus Miami and Tampa still surge. So Miami's up 28.6% as of and all these are October. This is this week. All these this came out this week, folks. So just want to let everybody know we're talking about October 25th, and we're sitting here at October 26th. So so this article came out October 25th. This article came out October 20th. So Miami is up 28.6% year over year increase, and Tampa 28% year over year increase. And Charlotte, North Carolina, 21%. Now, Tampa and Miami, there's a ton of multinational companies moving in there.
Right.
And the thing about Tampa is they're trying to get control of the crime there. So, they're actually hiring police officers like crazy out of Orlando. So Orlando is seeing are going to have to raise their salaries, and so is the sheriff's department there. So my son's up there; he's a cop, and he's going to get a raise because them Tampa's pulling people cops into the city like crazy. So I mean, we're seeing Florida market continue to grow, and then when you look here, single family median price up 13.8%. Condos up 20%, but sales down 29%. and this is where we want to get into this, is that sales, let's roll into this so we can show people.
Yeah.
So Port St. Lucie as of September, and this is what you need to really pay attention to. So now we're talking medium price. So I know when we're talking about homes going up, or or going, here recently, we were, the median price really had nothing to do with it. But now that we're seeing the market stall, and median price is something to really look at. So medium sales price in Port St. Lucie a year ago is up 17% right now. Want you to see this though. New listings are down 13%. Active inventory is up 113%. But I'm telling you, you're going to see this decrease for October, because we're seeing this inventory coming off of the market now, because people are now taking their homes off the market. Martin County, you're looking at the same thing. Medium sell price up 21%. New listings down 20%, and active inventory at 68%. And a lot of this inventory too, keep in mind, guys, is and new pending sales down still. We're seeing that on both sides. So a lot of this inventory that's coming up though is new construction.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of they're continuing to build. They're not going to stop building. So there's inventory sitting there, and a lot of deals have fallen apart for these builders. Palm Beach County's medium sell price is up 23%. New listings down about 9.5%. Active inventory up 68%. So new pending sales down. So the market in Florida, we're seeing sales, the prices pretty much staying up across the board in South Florida all the way to Miami, but because inventory is reducing, because the new listings aren't coming on the market. So the inventory is going up, but I personally believe it's mostly builders, because so boots on the ground, right? The last week we have seen I was literally in a contract with a client. The whole contract was negotiated, and we were the seller's agent sent it over to have initials done on it, and they took the house off the market. They just decided we're not going to sell the house for what we have to sell it for. So, and then I had an appraisal come in today, where last year, 6 months ago, I know it would have appraised. And we dropped the price $40,000 to sell the house. It sold the next day. Appraisal came in right on the button.
Yeah.
But I know that appraisal would have been what the appraisal was. So, we're seeing price drops. We're seeing, I'm talking to appraisers. They're taking 5% right off the top, because they don't know where the bottom of the market is. But I just don't see prices coming down in Florida. I think you're going to see, I think we're going to see definitely Palm Beach County, level off. But this talk of 10% coming off the prices, I don't see it happening. People just stay in their homes, or they'll rent them, because I saw a study the other day, 80% of Americans are at 3.5% or less. Yeah. So any sell we see right now is going to be a forced sell, meaning that they have to sell. Like they're moving to another state, right? They're moving from one side of Florida to the other, or there's a reason they have to sell. There's a reason they have to sell. So all the sales we're going to see right now are forced sales until rates come back down. But new constructions continue to move on, and it's weird that market is really kind of all over the place too. So you're seeing stuff like this new sales event, right? Mattamy Homes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So closing costs, financing, interest rate buy downs, mortgage insurance, and more. Pulte's paying CDD bonds off completely. So if you buy Inherent Preserve, they pay off your CDD bond for that's like $600 a month for the next 10 years. They're paying that off now for sellers. And I can tell you, if I'm dropping a video on that probably tomorrow. It'll be out by Friday at the latest on new construction and what's going on. But if you make an offer on new construction right now, it probably is going to get accepted.
Yeah.
I mean, they're dropping their pants.
Yeah. For the folks that don't know what that bond is, basically that's for infrastructure for developers that's passed on to the, through the tax system. And that's how, infrastructure is essentially paid for by the people that use those amenities, roads,
right,
things like that. Yeah. Utility.
Right. So we're seeing, we made an offer. I won't say the builder because I don't want to get in trouble with, because I have a relationship with all these people and it's really good. Yeah. So, but I will tell you, we made it. I had a client right on the side, right on the fence on a house, $850,000. We made an offer for $800,000. They dropped it $100,000. So an $850,000 house you could buy right now and there's two of them. You can buy right now in Tradition for $750,000. They're giving pools away, $100,000 credits, kitchen, $75,000 towards a kitchen here in Palm Beach County. So it's there's some really, really good things happening as far as new construction. And I would say to anyone on the new construction side, this is going to, up till the holidays, to January 1st, you can really go in there and cut a deal, because a lot of these builders are, all of the builders except for Mattamy and are publicly traded. So, Toll Brothers, their community, Pulte, Devasta, these are great builders. Coulter, they're publicly traded, so, but with that being said, Coulter and PGA Verano, they're selling houses, man. They got all new models, and they got models that starting in the high threes. So, with upgrades and everything, you're in the low fours. Same way with Mattamy Homes and Cadence. They've sold at least 15 homes in there, if not more, in that new community. They don't even have electricity in there yet. They're running off generators still because FPL hasn't been able to get to them. Then you're seeing some communities drop the 55 and overs right now. I mean, there's deals to be had there. I'm going to tell you right now in those 55 and over. And Taylor Morrison is locking the rate. Well, not locking the rate, but they're guaranteeing the rate so that the rate doesn't go beyond a certain amount. So you're really, really seeing these builders get super aggressive, but they're not lowering the price of the home they're giving you a credit,
right,
or an incentive. So they're crediting back the, let's say on the 100,000, they're crediting back the lot premium. Right. So the house is staying up there, but they're doing the credits. And they're going upgrades. To do, and in like these, like Cadence, when they sell off so many homes, or in Heron Preserve, where they sell off so many homes, they're going to do a price increase. So you're going to see the price go up, but the incentives may get bigger. But they're going to hold on to the market because they know the market's going to come back. Right.
It is going to come back. And
well, sure.
And they want strong fourth quarter figures and year end. So they're going to be motivated certainly through December for sure.
Yeah. And they don't want to be carrying, and like Mattamy's privately held, they don't want to be carrying the debt on their books.
No. they land bank for years out there too. And once they start, putting up walls, it gets expensive to carry that debt. And
Right.
they're carrying that debt that we've talked about, the Fed funds rate. They're kind of attached to that.
Right,
So
because
that's
they're financing, it's like a floor
right.
plan in a car lot. They're financing these homes to, while they're building them.
Right. And any carry cost is costing them thinking that they're paying the mortgage every month. It doesn't close. Right.
Right. So, and buyers right now are willing to deal. They have
Right.
no choice because there's only a few cash buyers. I mean, we have a few cash buyers right now. Unfortunately, I mean, you have some buyers that aren't my buyers, but you have one, I guess,
Yeah.
that we're trying to get him straightened out,
Right.
and do something for him sooner than later. But everyone else I have right now is cash, and everyone I have coming into town over the next couple of months is cash. So,
and we had people that could pay cash before, but when rates were lower,
right.
they would choose to
They
hang
would
on to their
choose to hang
funds.
on to it. But you have some cool loans where people that are paying cash, like, Brent, talk about this reverse mortgage that you have right now. I know people are a little afraid of reverse mortgages. They've heard some horror stories, but I mean, I've got several friends that have done a reverse mortgage, and it's worked out great for them. So,
Oh yeah.
so it depends on, I think, the lender you're using, definitely.
Right.
But talk a little bit about this reverse mortgage idea.
Well, typically, people, what they do is they get a mortgage on a home they're already in. They want to stay in their home, but their income is, switched to a kind of a fixed income, retirement income, pension, and Social Security possibly. So they're limited, and they really can't pay a mortgage anymore. Let's say they have a $500,000 house they owe $100,000 on. That payment can just go away. And actually, in the situation like that, if they're 70, 75 years old, they can actually receive a check every month as opposed to making a payment. That's typically what you hear of, in a reverse mortgage, or a home equity conversion is what another name for it. But basically, what it is on a purchase, where someone, instead of coming down and plopping $850,000 down in a home, they could put, $450,000 or $500,000 down, and the rates are, in the 6% range for HECM or reverse mortgages, and so the rates are a little lower. It's guaranteed by the HUD. It's a federally insured loan,
Right.
And basically
Reagan created it.
Yeah, it's really a neat program. So they could put a big chunk down and not have to, take all their funds out of their investments. They can keep those funds deployed, because this is going to turn around, right? It's just a temporary situation. So they could preserve capital. If they want to make additional home improvements or build an addition or something like that, keeping some reserve cash, they can put a serious amount down and never have a payment. Depending on their age, they could get a reverse mortgage, and basically they could just keep their funds deployed in other investments and stay liquid and still never have a payment. So there's some neat strategies that way.
Right.
So yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so we're going to get through this. The long and short of it is we're going to get through it. I think, the damage that is done, that the Fed can do. I don't think they can do much more. I don't think they can do much damage to the job market. I mean, they're going to, certain places like the mortgage industry, they, that was first because of the refis, but that's going to come right back.
It is,
and eventually,
we're growing.
and then, right.
Yeah, we're growing. I mean, we just opened a larger office. Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
We know. I mean, I'm putting my money where my mouth is, because I really believe that right now there's going to be some great talent that's going to be let go from other companies, other lenders, and we can utilize their skill sets and train them up in the way that we do business. And 12 months from now, when things are really fully turned around and the recession kicks in more, and rates come back down. All the homes are, financed at 7% right now will be obvious refis. So,
right. And I would say too, if your budget can fit the rate in the house, right.
Right.
I mean, right now, especially, it's a great time to be out buying homes, because I personally believe when rates come back down in the fives, man, we have 300,000 people for the next 3 years predicted to move to Florida because of all of the multinational companies and jobs that exist here right now, and they're moving their businesses, and they're in the process of it. Like, Blackstone, BlackRock, Citadel, Goldman Sachs. I mean, these companies, they're just not moving overnight. I mean, it takes them a long time to get there. So their employees are continuing to move into the state. And we're seeing more and more tech companies, hedge funds, crypto funds, brokerage, small brokerages, small desks are moving here like crazy. So, I mean, New York City's being hollowed out, which is really a shame, but it's being hollowed out. There's no two ways about it.
Right.
So they're moving here, and then they're going to keep moving here. And so the market's going to stay strong. And nationwide, we're still in a housing shortage because this, these millennials is it's kind of created a baby boomer effect, is the way I'm seeing is they're starting families, they have jobs, they're getting higher paid jobs. And the restaurants are still struggling for employees because these employees left these restaurants and went to higher paying jobs. And then as rents go up where they can't afford to buy a house, the employers are giving more money to their employees to keep them. So
it's a supply and demand thing.
It really is a supply and demand situation.
Right.
And the demand's not going away, especially in this state. And there's no supply, and people, and there's, there's a couple of really smart guys that I watch on, and I sent them over to you too, that have predicted this too, that sellers would just take their houses off the market and stay in them, or they would rent their houses, which would add to the rental market. But there's a lot of inventory out there in new construction that you can buy right now. And if you can buy that right now, that's a deal. You're gonna get you can really negotiate a deal. You can just go put an offer in. And sit and negotiate the offer.
Yeah, I mean, when you do that and you do that well, consider that, and then consider what the rental environment is too, and then the long-term rental situation versus a long-time ownership situation. And I think, hands down, over the long haul, you can always refinance, so yeah. Eli has a good question here.
Yeah.
It's my understanding that when a builder finances a build, they only pay interest only, right, until the property is sold. That's correct. The builder typically use the deposits to pay the interest. That's a great question, Eli. They do pay interest only, and in a typical investment like a loan, construction loan, they pay interest only, and then they're not actually paid their profit until they sell out the loan that was set for that number of homes that it was kind of attached to, if you will. National builders finance a little different, is my understanding, but the smaller builders, that's how they do it. They're paid actually on the last few homes because until that loan is entirely paid off, and their profits in the last few homes. For a smaller builder, a little different for the larger national builders, but they don't pay any principal down. That's right. They're just paying the interest only use of those funds, but that is very closely attached to the Fed funds rate, and so they're feeling the squeeze on that for sure.
Yeah, they don't want it. They don't want it sitting on their. They don't want that house sitting.
Right.
They're
paying interest.
I have a client working with a builder right now, and he's kind of a pain, and he's not really my friend. He's my friend's friend, and I just did a favor and helped him get a deal put together, and it's been a nightmare for me. But anyway, so he's kind of dragging the builder out. And I can't believe the builder's being so nice about it, but they are, and they're bending over backwards for trying to help this guy. Mm-hmm. And what I'm trying to say to him, if he, because I'm talking to him through my buddy, and what I'm trying to say to him is, look, you don't want to lose your deposit. They're not going to give you your deposit back. But they are willing to bend over backwards for him. And if he'll just sit down with them and have a real conversation, I mean, he could probably renegotiate the deal.
Mm-hmm.
because they don't want the house.
Yeah, speaking of deposits, so that was part of Eli's question. We get that, and realize we didn't answer that portion. They don't use the deposits to pay the interest necessarily. That deposit is actually turned around as a part of the purchase price. It's credited to the buyer at closing, so they don't specifically use that.
That has to stay in an escrow account.
That stays in an escrow account, right?
Yeah, that they can't earn interest on.
Right. That's a good point.
That's the law in Florida.
Basically, that earnest money deposit's what you're referring to, or basically it's like, hey, I'm serious about this, and the larger the upgrades are, and any special situations that need to be addressed in the home, specifically like a pool or high end cabinets, things like that. Typically, they want to be paid for those, or have that deposit increase to cover the costs. And say, let's say you back out of the transaction, those costs are kind of covered. Is what that's really for, to keep you in the game, because they're making changes specifically to someone's preferences.
Right. So, opinion, wrap this up. Next year, probably first, second quarter, we should see rates start to fall. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. Oh, absolutely. I think, we're going to see it kind of like really volatile even when it finds a top on the rates. We really haven't seen that. Last week, the average interest rate was 7.14. And so we're below that on everything we've done. I think that's a standard single family home, with a solid credit score, is what they're looking at, by the way. So, I see, right now we'll see if that floor holds at 4%, because it's definitely bounced off the highs of the 4.25 on the 10-year Treasury. That's just a guide. It's not exactly what mortgage rates are doing, but we'll see how the PCE report comes out on Friday, and certainly GDP, and see if the economy is still struggling.
Right. Well, I think a lot's going to change. We're going to see, people have been holding back, seeing what happens with the elections coming up.
Yeah, that's true too.
We're coming into the holidays, so that's another thing. The wallet's a little tighter right now, so that's going to make a difference in definitely the housing market and in everything, and spending. And then, I think it's, I'm looking at the economy, I'm looking at what's going on, I'm watching the numbers on a daily basis. I'm, looking at the stock market, looking at futures. I think that, oil prices are going to stay high. I think they're going to go up. We're going to see natural gas and we're going to see gas go up. I mean, when they take money out of the strategic fund, oil reserve, it's a day's worth of oil. I mean, that's not really, we're seeing a little bit of a dip, but I think that's because we're seeing less people traveling. So over the holidays, we're going to see what happens and how much money people spend. Listen, we're tightening our belt. We're holding on to cash, tightening our belt, keeping our credit cards low. If I use my credit cards, you do too. We pay them off every month. I just like getting the money, making, because I get,
bonus points,
cash back on, points back on the credit card. So I use my credit cards, keep my cash in the bank, pay off my credit cards at the end of the month, and then, take the points. So, but I would tell everyone, hey, look, we're sitting here making just spitballing with the rest of the
rest of the crowd, right?
The rest of the crowd. No one thought we would be in this position with rates. No one thought we'd be in this position with our economy. So where things will be over the next 2, 3, 4 months, no one really knows. It depends on what the Fed does, what happens in the election, what happens with, job markets. There's just a lot of variables that there's no way to look back and see, hey, what happened the last time this happened, because this has never happened. We've never had an economy really thriving, a job market thriving, and then the Fed trying to slow everything down. And then basically, in my opinion, if the Fed would have raised rates faster, we'd probably
Sooner.
be sitting. Yeah, we would sooner. Sooner. That's the word. Yeah, we would probably be sitting around 5% right now, and the market would be clicking along, and everything would be okay. I think
You're calling inflation transitory right up until December.
Yeah. That was just, So I think Powell has made he moved way too slow, and he had to move really fast, and it's just really put a pinch on people. But keep your credit cards down, because the interest rates could continue to go up. And you're going to get hurt if you're using your credit cards over the holidays. So watch your expenses. Yeah, watch your expenses over the holidays. Yeah.
Credit card
watch your expenses over the holidays. Hold on to your cash. Listen, be blessed that we live in this great country of ours, and that you have your family around you. And if you have that, you have everything, right, Brent?
Amen.
We wish everybody the best. Thanks for joining us again tonight. We will be back next week on Wednesday, and hopefully I won't have my roast in the oven. I won't be.
It's always something.
It's in there. Yeah, I can hear the bell going off telling me it's ready, but the oven's shut off. So
ready for dinner.
But I'm sitting here listening to the bell go off. But hey, thanks again for joining us tonight. We'll be back next Wednesday. If you have not subscribed to our channel, don't forget to slap that subscribe button, ring the notification bell so you don't miss any of our real estate tips and tours. Don't forget to go to Brent's site and follow Brent on his YouTube site. It's Brent Starts at Unitas Lending. So he's got good information. He does 3 times a week, and there's a lot of good stuff in there about how to prepare for a loan. If because if you're looking to buy in the next few months or in the next year, you want to start with that process right now. Brent has all that information going up every single day on his YouTube site. He's doing a great job with it. He's got a great coach.
A great trainer.
Really good coach.
Appreciate you.
So yeah, we really think, hey man,
you got to get that how to do YouTube site.
I'm going to get it going, man.
I know you are. You need to. Yeah. Everyone's calling you all the time. That's the problem.
Know. I've got everybody. So anyways, so go subscribe to Brent's channel again, and we will see you next week. Be kind to each other, okay? Be nice to each other out there. Everybody's stressed out, so just realize that, hey, we're all in this together, and we'll make it out together.
Amen.
All right. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.